Welcome to another edition of Popcorn Bucket List, the September 2020 edition. I am your host, Nick Dahlhoff, and movies are back.
Movies are back.
At least
yes,
they
are.
At least a few of them are. But before we get into all that, I need to introduce my friend, my confidant, my comrade, Mr. Ryan Meyerberg.
Well, thank you for those kind words in the introduction. Movies are back. We're ready to get back into the swing of things. It's kind of a lull, but happy to be back.
It's a slow and it's a little bit of a running start.
Yeah.
Not what we're used to.
Not fast paced, but it's we're getting there. We're
relearning to walk before we can run again. So let's talk about some of the movie news that kind of happened here this past month. Not a lot to go over, as we want to talk about some of the new stuff that is finally coming out here that you at home can enjoy. But one of the big pieces was New Mutants was one of the first kind of new movies to have a big box office push.
Yeah.
Now, when I say big box office push, I mean that in the context of what's going on.
What's going on right now?
Just to put a little perspective in it, New Mutants had the biggest opening weekend since March. It grossed about $7 million the last week of August. Just to put that in comparison, the last big opening weekend was in March, the weekend of the 13th and the 15th, which was Onward, which had a $53 million weekend.
Yeah,
that wasn't even its opening.
A slight difference in the numbers. Yes, it wasn't even the opening.
That was the second weekend in the theaters.
Yeah.
So, but it is something. Mm-hmm. It's the first big push since March.
It's that first big step towards getting people back in the theaters and getting that money back in the into the theater chain. So, yes, it's a small step, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other big things that is coming up is, we mentioned this kind of on the last episode, we're going to kind of reiterate it again, the one-on-one matchup, Mulan versus Tenet. These two are going to be premiering at around the same time on different platforms. Ryan, why don't you talk a little bit remind us what we're looking at here.
All right, well, Tenet is a Christopher Nolan film coming out, and that is going to be released to theaters. It was released internationally at first, I believe, but now it's got its U.S. release. Now, Mulan is going to be released on Disney+. Now, with some of the things, the kind of controversy and stuff going with Mulan is they pulled it out of the theaters, and then they offered it on Disney+. However, you have to pay $30 to watch it. So you already are paying for your Disney Plus subscription.
Words are hard sometimes.
Yes. And then the $30 on top of that. But then you own that movie. Mm-hmm. From what I understand is that's your movie now. Whether you get rid of your subscription next year, do you still get to keep that film? I haven't heard. But from the way it sounds like you download it, you get to keep it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at right now is when these two films come out, they are going to see how did Tenet perform making money at the box office and how did Mulan perform releasing on a streaming service. Mm-hmm. So this will be very interesting, I would say, over the next 2 weeks to kind of see the numbers and see how these things go. And I really, I was fortunate enough to see Tenet, and I can't wait to watch Mulan. However, I don't want to pay that $30. So I will be finding a way somehow to circumvent that. And I will not pay, but I'm going to watch the movie. I do not condone piracy or anything like that. Very bad. But if your friend has Disney Plus, make them pay for it and you go over and watch it. That's what I'll be doing.
Now, one thing I think is going to be interesting is sometimes with these streaming services, they don't necessarily have to release their numbers if they don't want to. One thing that has always been talked about with Netflix is they really don't have to release their ratings or how many people watch. Sometimes they do, just to show off a little bit. But like with theaters, it's a box office number that's reported. Anyone can look it up if they want to. So this is kind of me speculating, looking in the future here. But in the next few weeks, we'll be able to see the Tenet numbers regardless whether or not Warner Brothers wants us to or not.
Yep.
If maybe the Mulan numbers aren't as great, we might not get news or anything that says what
And
Mulan
then
is doing.
that kind of goes, if they aren't reporting their numbers, it could be a really good thing or a really bad thing.
That's the thing. We
You
wouldn't
don't
know.
You
We
don't
wouldn't
know.
But we do have a little bit of foreshadowing for Tenet and its performance. I believe you mentioned earlier that Tenet did release internationally a little bit ago, and the numbers for that looked really good. They were reporting, I believe it was either their opening week or opening weekend, a 53 million gross, which, as we mentioned before with Onward, was like the last big money push that they
Yep.
had. So, and these numbers actually kind of surprised some experts. It was a little bit higher than they thought. So, at least as far as the international markets, it's looking pretty good. We're gonna have to see how the
See
American
if it can
markets.
translate over to the American markets, which would be pretty awesome.
Exactly. But we are optimistic. We really want the Tenet and specifically the theaters to win.
Yes,
It
yes.
seems like we're pitting Warner Brothers against Disney. We want to point out that's not exactly
That's
what
not-
we wanted
yeah,
to do.
We're not trying to bash Disney or say anything bad about Disney or
Please don't sue us, Disney.
yes, or put them down or put down streaming or anything, because it does have benefits. Streaming does, but we are in the camp of the cinematic experience and theaters still being strong and able to watch movies at a theater and get that full theater experience, not just sitting at home on your TV watching TV.
So we'll have to see how this shakes up. Hopefully by the next episode next month, we'll have a little bit more of
Some more
something to-
numbers,
some more numbers, some
a
more
little
things
more
to talk
information.
about for and everything. But with that, let's talk about what's coming up here in September. We do have a few things to preview here.
Yep.
A little bit of a mixture. We got a few that are coming out in streaming services. We got a few that are coming out here new in theaters. So let's get to talking about that. Right away, off the bat, Thursday, September 3rd, is the Tenet quote-unquote wide limited release. They're calling it a limited
Yeah.
release, but it is kind of a wide release.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot more theaters. It's already been in some early access.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned we actually had a chance to get an early screening of it as well before we recorded this. Friday, September 4th, the very next day, is when Mulan will be coming into Disney+. So either if you have your own subscription or if you have a friend who will let you borrow theirs, there's some to check out there on that Friday. The very next Friday, September 11th, is a movie that's coming to theaters as a right of this recording called The Broken Hearts Gallery. This is a movie I didn't know much about, hadn't heard a lot,
neither.
but it's basically a rom-com set in New York City where these two people essentially set up this art gallery where people from around the world can come and add to it. And the thing they add to it are these mementos and these reminders of these past relationships that didn't work out. And it becomes this huge gallery of all these mementos, and it kind of lets people have closure to these
Relationships,
relationships that didn't
Yep.
work out before.
Interesting.
On for Friday, September 18th, coming to video on demand, Antebellum. This is a horror movie starring Janelle Monáe, who was originally known more for her singing, but has started to more and more get into acting. She was great in Hidden Figures. She was great in season 2 of Homecoming, so I would really look forward to seeing her performance in this. Wednesday, September 23rd, coming to Netflix. This is one that also I think is kind of interesting. Is a movie called Enola Holmes. It's coming to Netflix again. This is a new take on the Sherlock Holmes story, starring Millie Bobby Brown, who, as many know from
I was
Stranger
gonna say, I
Things.
thought she was starring in
Yep.
the Holmes thing coming
Yep.
up soon, but I didn't know it was called that.
Yep. Basically, she is Sherlock Holmes' little sister. Sherlock Holmes in this movie being played by Henry Cavill, who's known for one of the Mission Impossible movies, as well as playing Superman. So he's just checking all the boxes of some of the bigger characters.
Henry Cavill, he's been in a lot of bigger.
As well as The Witcher, another Netflix show.
Yeah, yep.
But yeah, this basically tackles the story of the younger sister of Sherlock Holmes tackling her own mystery of their missing mother.
That'll be interesting. Good watch.
And then finally, on Friday, September 25th, Greenland. This is a Gerard Butler movie where a comet started to break apart as it came towards Earth. So there's a bunch of these little asteroids. It's basically like Armageddon, but little bits and pieces throughout the movie.
Armageddon, piece by piece.
Yeah. Armageddon part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anyways, but basically him and his family try to make their way to a secure bunker set in Greenland that's supposedly going to help them ride out this storm. I'm kind of a big Gerard Butler fan.
Me too.
He's not
Me too.
always in the greatest movies, but man, does he make them better.
He does.
Every
He
time.
does. Oh.
So those are some of the movies that are coming out here this next month. Like we mentioned before, the movie theaters are reopening. The one here in Marshall reopened. They've got a few other special movies to check out as well.
Yep.
We're going to talk about those a little bit. A few of the movies that we had already mentioned that have come out or are premiering.
Coming out, yeah.
New Mutants, as we mentioned before. Tenet is going to get its wider release in the Marshall 6 Theater, as well as Unhinged, which we have mentioned on this show a few times as well. Another new movie that I believe premiered a couple weeks ago was Words on the Bathroom Walls. This is another one this is maybe a little bit of a newer one to check out as well. But it also will try to throw in a few classics as well. One that I think will grab a lot of people's attention.
I think so too.
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. For all you Potterheads out there who didn't get a chance to watch these in the original theaters, now's your chance. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked to the manager of the theater, and he said they're going to go through the whole Harry Potter series week by week.
Yep. Now, obviously, if newer films come out, those can change. But as of right now, the tentative plan is, yes, to keep going through all the films because depending on how this situation stays the way it is or doesn't get better or gets worse, they have that flexibility to change and move with the moving times.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, again, all of these recommendations, these previews, they're all pretty liquid. So one thing we highly encourage you to do is be constantly looking at your local theater's website. We're going to provide links to the Marshall 6 Theater showtimes as well as some of their COVID-19 guidelines. We want to make sure we stay safe at these so they can stay open as long as possible and that everyone feels safe going to these theaters. So you want to make sure you constantly are checking the show times, make sure everything stays the way they are, and adjust if need be. It is limited show times. They're not going to have as many as they used to, so be sure to check them out and plan ahead.
Limited show times, more cleaning, less people in the auditorium, so you won't be there like... for a sold-out movie, it won't be like that. It'll be a lot less people, more spacious, more spread out. We want to get back to the theater, but the most important thing is doing it safely, and that's what is going on right now.
And also bringing up the limited seating, you want to make sure you get there with plenty of time so you can get into that limited seating as well.
Yep.
So yeah, again, we'll provide some of those links to the Marshall 6 Theater, especially if you're in another area. Be sure to check out your own local theaters' links as well. But let's wrap up the show here with a few recommends. Ryan, why don't you kick us off? What have you been watching recently?
All right. Well, not obviously, but the new films that came out, I went and saw New Mutants and Tenet. We actually saw those together. But Tenet was... in my opinion, everything I wanted my trip back to the movie theater to be. It had action. It was more of a spy movie. The choreography of the fight scenes, the action, the kind of Christopher Nolan touch that he has on his films, which if you've seen his films, you might know what I'm talking about. I know some people were a little disappointed it wasn't like a sequel to Inception or a prequel or doesn't necessarily fit in that box of that world. But I thought this film was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I find myself still thinking about it. I highly recommend this film. If you're a Christopher Nolan fan, if you're an action fan, adventure, spy thrillers even if you're a fan of cinema and kind of new techniques or more of the practical effects where people are doing things and it's not all green screen, no offense to Marvel, I love Marvel, but it's very very practical, and it's worth a watch. It's definitely worth a watch.
So for my recommends, I'm going to go on a little bit of a sadder note. We didn't talk about this so much on the news portion, but unfortunately, one of the bigger Hollywood stars recently passed, Chadwick Boseman, who many of you know from the Marvel series playing as Black Panther. He unfortunately passed recently. So I am recommending going back and rewatching as many of the stuff as you can. Black Panther obviously is on Disney Plus. A lot of his movies you can either kind of buy or rent on Amazon Prime. Two that I would say that I've seen, I would recommend is 42.
Yep.
Which I think was probably one of the first ones I had seen him in. It's not his first role, but
No.
that was one of the first ones that I saw him
bigger roles, and I really liked that film, and I would say I liked that film more than Black Panther, just for my own taste. But
Yeah.
Black Panther, he was great, but 42 I really liked. It was more of a realistic character than obviously a Black Panther of a superhero.
Yeah.
But I really suggest 42. Great film. Great film.
And another one that I would recommend that I believe you can find on Amazon Prime as well is a movie called Marshall. This is another real life character, a real life scenario that he went through or acted out, and both really great films. But find as many of them as you can just to watch, especially the ones that came out kind of in between 2016 and now. That was when his diagnosis happened. And the thing that a lot of people kind of talked about and eulogized with him is nobody really knew.
No, yeah.
And he kind of powered through that. And it was crazy to me to think, I was talking to this with a friend, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, like, at one point he had to either go through a surgery or a chemotherapy and then get up and go, okay, I'm going to go fight Thanos.
Yeah.
And nobody knew. And he powered through that. And he's a real inspiring guy on and off the screen. So just to kind of give him a little bit more love, be sure to go check out his films one more time.
Yep.
But that is going to do it for us here on Popcorn Bucket List. If you are watching this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment of some of your own recommendations, as well as some of your favorites. Maybe you agree with us, disagree with us.
Yeah.
Feel free to throw
Let
that
us
in
know
the
your
comments.
thoughts.
Yeah. Be sure to check out the Marshall 6 website links. Again, will be in the description if you're watching on YouTube, or we'll leave them here on screen if you're watching this on the public access channel. For myself and Ryan Meyerberg, we'd like to thank you for watching, and I've been waiting a long time to say this again. We'll see you at the movies.